What's up, y'all? I am back for another video. We are here to continue. This will probably be the final Rocky video for this week, and then we'll pick up next Tuesday with Rocky 5. So, we'll be talking about that. I'm thinking that'll be Tuesday. Tomorrow, I'll do my final Halloween related video. This was one I was supposed to do last week. I didn't do last week, so I'm just going to do it this week. And then, I might do a bands I love tomorrow if I'm in the mood. But other than that, we're getting our main video. Probably my favorite of the Rocky movies. Don't get me wrong, I love the first one, and I've said this multiple times. The first one is probably the best objectively. Same with, honestly, Rocky 2. But Rocky 4 is just my favorite in the franchise. I find myself watching this one of all the films, this one the most. The soundtrack is so good. The story's good. You know, and I mentioned rewatching it again, especially because often when I watch it mainly kind of, I might watch the first Rocky and then watch Rocky 4. But, you know, watching Rocky 4 for the first time in a while with, like, the other ones, watching them, it's so much better. Like, you know, the stuff with Apollo, Ivan Drago was a great villain, and yes, I think the director's cut should be coming out next week. It'll have a theatrical release, and then it's going to be on demand. When I find a way to watch it, and I will for sure. I'm not going to do a review because we're already doing it now, but I might like do a comparison video where I mention like what are the differences in the ultimate cut or the director's cut of Rocky 4. So we'll compare those probably if I can find if I find a way to watch it. So, but for me, this is my, like I mentioned, my favorite one in the franchise. I always watch this one. But watching this one with the other ones, Drago is such a good antagonist. Dolph Lundgren did a really good job as the villain or antagonist because he's not a villain like that. But you know, Apollo's death, like a lot of people I've seen often say this is their favorite one. And to me, the final fight in this, I like them around. I like the final fights in a lot of the other movies. But man, the final fight in this, you're so into it. And it's crazy because you know Rocky's gonna win. But it's like, you're still like, when he gets, it's like, oh man. And, like, you're like, ooh, Rock. Even though you know he's gonna fucking win. I've watched this movie so many times and I'm still like, when Drago hits, I'm like, oh man, every time. That's when you know something is good. When it's basically, you're almost like watching it for the first time every time. This came out at a time. This came out in 1985. You know, we were still having like a bits of the Cold War. Russia was the USSR at the time. So you have this like weirdos I have seen call this movie propaganda. I have. You know, because you have these weird anti-American people who always anti-America people who always like go on about like how bad America is, that they say movies like this is propaganda. Pretty much any movie with a Russian villain, when that's just what it was in the 80s. I mean, you can say it's following a trend, but at the end of the day, Drago is an antagonist. He's not even a villain, because to me, villain and antagonist are two different things. An antagonist is just someone who is like a challenge to the hero, but even the protagonist, because even then, I think Rock is a hero, but he's not fighting like a super villain. Like Drago is just his opponent for the fight. That's why I don't call him like a villain, because a villain's like Michael Myers or the Joker, where they're actually evil and they have like an evil plan. Not just Drago's just, I want to beat Rocky. At the end of the day, that's what boxing is, and he's such a good villain. And I love the juxtaposition in the training. Like that's the biggest thing. The training montages are so good. They're all of them are great. Like not just the training montage. Like one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie is the scene where he's just driving in a car and No Easy Way Out's playing, which I fucking love that scene. So you're just gonna see me gush the whole time. So I fucking love this movie. So we'll get started. First time in a while I smoked a joint on camera. Here we go. So the movie kicks off with the usual, you know, retelling of the previous movies that we get kind of a cool little intro with the boxing gloves where you have like one with the American flag on it and one with like the Russian flag. Then they hit each other. Then we get the recap of the third film, like a lot of the other Rockies did, where they would show you the footage from the third movie. Rocky beats Clubber. Then we get kind of like a quick another scene of basically the ending of the third movie where Rocky and Apollo punch each other. Then the movie actually kicks off with Rocky coming home, celebrating Paulie's birthday. It's a fun little scene. I love Paulie, man. He's one of my favorite characters in the movie. This is where they introduced that very 80s robot. I fucking love it. It's like one of my favorite parts of the entire movie. There are some people who are Rocky fans I've seen who are like they like this movie, but they say they don't like a lot of these scenes. Like they feel like it makes the movie kind of goofy. I disagree, especially when there's only like a few of them. You have the quick scene where they give him the cake, and then you see the robot. Okay, 2 times. Then you see the robot again in that little scene, and I'll just get to it. But and then one other scene. There's like 3 scenes you see the robot. So I don't get like I don't think it was that goofy, and they brought it out at the time where it was right. So Rocky celebrated um Paulie's birthday, then him and Adrian, who man, by this film their fucking chemistry is. I think of all the films, this one's definitely the best, and it makes sense because this is the 4th film. They've already worked with each other 3 times now, going to be the 4th time, so of course they're gonna be better. But yeah, Rocky and Adrian, I'm gonna always mention favorite couple in film, just because, like I said, the love feels real, man. Like, it feels real. So they celebrate their like I think it was 9-year anniversary of their being married. Then the next day, this is where we're introduced to Drago. Really cool way to introduce him, along with and we're introduced to Ludmilla, which is Bridget Nelson, who at the time I think was Rocky's real girlfriend at the time. They were actually dating. Like, so you might recognize her. This will be another franchise that we'll eventually get to. The Beverly Hills Cop movies. So she was in Beverly Hills Cop 2. Like, I think like a few years after this movie. But yeah, she was in that. We're also introduced to his manager, Nikolai Koloff. You might recognize him from the one other movie I recognize him from was he was in Halloween 4, which came out a few years later. But this is where they showcase a bit of Drago's power. And man, Drago was such a like. You think Clubber was a big dude? Fucking Drago was huge, man. Especially at the time. I'm like, because Dolph Lundgren was also fucking tall, so that's why. And so Apollo, so we're reintroduced to Apollo, and he's playing with his dogs, and he sees them promoting Drago, and he wants an exhibition fight with him, so he agrees, meets up with Rocky, and basically asks him to be like his manager, kind of like how Mickey was with him, and it's like you can tell Rocky didn't want to do it, but then we get this funny little scene. This is where we get the one other scene. You get the robot play this really cheesy 80s song, and like Paulie changed the voice to like this like female. Then we get another scene of Rocky and Apollo. I love their moments in this film, especially considering we're obviously their whole story up until this point, and they're watching I think it's the fight from the second film. Yeah, it's the fight from the second film. Apollo asks him to be his manager. Rocky reluctantly agrees. Then we get the press conference. It was one of the funniest scenes in the movie. Apollo's doing his classic trash talking. Then starts talking shit to Nikolai. They start going back and forth. Then the scene where Drago shows his punching power, and there's a lot of foreshadowing in this movie. There's a few scenes they do foreshadow some things, like this scene especially, like where Drago's showing his punching power, and then Nikolai is like, whatever he hits, he destroys. I'm like, oh man, obviously at the time people didn't know, but definitely like rewatching it now, it's so ominous watching that scene. So, we have the press conference. Apollo starts talking shit. Then it kind of gets worse, and it becomes a bit of a brawl because Apollo insults his country and stuff. This is at a time when you could just be patriotic, man. That's the other thing about this movie, compared to just watching movies from today. It's just there's just a time you could just be patriotic. I'm not saying you need to be like to the point where you just country you think you're all whatever everything your country's doing is perfect, but I don't like the shit we're getting now where you gotta like hate your country. No, that's why Rocky Four to me is another reason I love this movie. It like me as a fat black dude wants to like it makes me like I want to fight Drago for this country like just every time when I watch this movie. So then Drago like throws down a standout of Apollo, which that's another scene. I'm almost like that's foreshadowing. So we get the fight. We get the really cool intro with James Brown and Living in America. One of my favorite parts in the movie. It's almost sad though, and it's this would be one of the scenes where there is a juxtaposition. Now, Drago is in America. He's getting this like flashy American, watching Apollo doing this flashy American entrance, and obviously when we get to the main fight with Rocky and Drago, Drago's in his home country. I love that. Sorry if you hear a plane. But so we get that cool little intro. Oh, before that, Rocky and Apollo, like Rocky kind of almost wants Apollo to like postpone the fight, but Apollo's like refusing, and he basically mentions like you're gonna understand like because Apollo basically saying to Rocky, no, we're fighters, dude. We're not meant to almost like we're not meant to be anything else but fighters. And basically says you're gonna get what I mean, and after this is over, and well, he does, because pretty much the fight starts. Apollo's like throwing punches and it's doing nothing to Drago. And then when Drago starts throwing his punches, like man, they really like lay it on. And okay, now we're getting to the infamous Rocky Apollo death. I think it's recently, or I don't remember how long ago I saw it. I could have swore I saw it today, where Sylvester's mentioning he felt like it was a mistake killing Apollo, or he regretted it. I'm like, I don't think it works. Twofold. One, you show how powerful Drago is as a villain. In my opinion, it works for the story. Because I almost like, if you didn't kill Apollo, like, how would you. I guess you could have it to where Apollo gets seriously injured, I guess. That's probably the other option, but I'm sorry, it works for the story, and then we probably wouldn't have even got Creed. So ultimately, it works, and that's why I just feel like is he only saying this just to promote the director's cut, or does he actually genuinely feel like that? Because this movie's been out since like 1985. It like I said, it works for the story. I'm sorry, I'm cool. I mean, I love Apollo, but dude has had 3 movies, and it works for the story. So Drago basically ultimately kills him, and the thing is, Apollo like does not want Rocky at any point to throw in the towel, and then you have the other guy. I don't want to call him the other guy because he's in multiple movies. That he was Apollo's trainer. As Tony, he was Tony. It's just they don't really say his name. That's why I didn't really remember. But his name is Tony. He was Apollo's trainer slash like father figure. He was like throwing the towel, and Rocky didn't do it. Then Drago finishes, and this is where we get one of probably the goldest lines in the movie. If he dies, he dies, and it's just like, damn, and then the music, and then Rocky's holding Apollo, and that look on Rocky's face, man, he's like, I'm gonna fucking kill you. Almost, it's like I'm gonna fucking kill you. Look, it was almost like he wasn't Rocky anymore. He was like he's just about to turn into Rambo, and real quick. I fucking love this movie. It works. I think I love Apollo, but it ultimately works for the story that he died. So Rocky gives him a funeral, puts the World Heavyweight Championship on Apollo's coffin. Then this is where the fight is made between Rocky and Drago. It's gonna be in Russia, and it's an unsanctioned fight that is not endorsed by the boxing company. And we get another kind of press conference between the two, and Rocky's doing it for no pay, and it's gonna be in Russia. And Rocky's reasoning is he wants it to be like isolated. He wants to think about only Drago. Like it worked. It's such a good movie, man. I'm gonna keep saying that. Sorry, guys, if I sound like a broken record, but yeah. So, let's go. It's over. We get a scene where Adrian probably didn't even know this was going on. She's coming home, just a bunch of like media people at her house talking about like, oh, there's gonna be this fight with her husband and all that. And he probably didn't even know. And then Rocky comes home late, and now we're gonna get to Paul. This is one of the reasons I don't really smoke joints on camera, but so Rocky comes home, and yeah, this is one of my favorite scenes in the entire film. There's a lot of these, but yeah, definitely one of mine. Rocky, Adrian doesn't want Rocky to do it. She's initially trying to make it like, you winning doesn't, bring him back, but it is like he has to do it, just because it's just G code. Like, and I'm not like on that gangster shit, but that's just true. Like, or just that respect, that like honor system, like just whatever you want to fucking call it. You cannot just like fucking just let something like that slide, dude. Like, and I get it. Adrian, this is her husband. She realistically doesn't think he can win. She was saying like media quotes, and this is where you get that you can't win. And this is where Rocky finally accepts, like, yeah, I'm a fighter. That's all I can do, and I have to do it. Which he's right. He has to do it. What him and Apollo have been through in all 4 films. That's why, like, honestly, you can watch Rocky 4 on its own, but you're better off watching it with Rocky 1 through 3. Because, dude, when you watch them back to back, and then you get to 4, you see all the shit they've been through, and then they're there. It's like, no, you can't just let that shit slide. And the fact that he says if he dies, he dies. Like, he didn't even care. Such a good scene. And then, he storms off. We get one of the scene where he gets in the car, and they're playing basically a montage of the previous 3 films with No Easy Way Out playing. Such a good song. I love that song. Just in general, I love that song, but because that's just an excuse to watch this movie, just to listen to that song. But just in general, that's a good scene, just because it's like Rocky kind of like, and then because in between the montage, he's seeing Drago. But he's like, I have to do this. So we get that really cool scene. Then Rocky's getting ready to go for his trip to Russia. Has a really good scene with him and his son, Rocky Jr. It was actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It's another one, just like those little scenes. So Rocky goes to Russia. This is where Survivor comes back and does another song, Burning Heart. Actually, this song is almost like the theme of the entire movie. It's such a good song. If you actually listen to it, you can like, this song pretty much is almost like telling you the movie. It's like the movie in song. And just them in Russia. Like I said, this is 80s Russia when it was still the USSR. Communism still ran that country. So this is why some weirdos will call it a fucking propaganda, because, oh, Russia the bag, even though I'm not gonna get into that, but yeah, like, this scene is so good. Just once again to listen to the song, but it's also just rock. This is where he finds his cabin where he's gonna train and all his, and then like this is kind of where I guess we're gonna go a little ahead now to the training montage. We get kind of 2. We get a one where we get more of like this just score, which is like this 80s like techno. God damn it, sorry. Fucking plane. get this like really good not technical, techno 80, 80 score, and it works, man. Like, and I love like the set the difference of training style. Like Drago is training with like this fancy like exercise equipment, like he's training indoors. Well, Rocky's cutting trees down. He's training with wood, with logs. He's running. Well, granted, I guess that's the second training montage. But he runs on a mountain. Like he's using like nature. He's running through the snow. Such a good little like, just difference and juxtaposition like of training styles. Like Rocky's training in nature. The funny thing is, it's not even his country. He's doing it in Russia, and he's still training in like nature. While Drago is, has all the fancy workout equipment. It's not even sparring because he's fucking knocking them all out. But and then obviously they show he is on steroids because there was a question. One of the media people asked Nikolai basically because Nikolai is like his spokesperson. It's like if you understand wrestling, he's almost like Drago's Brock Lesnar and Nikolai's like Paul Heyman. I guess if you're gonna use that example, and Nikolai obviously denies giving him drugs, obviously, but he is. So Rocky gets done with running an awesome scene because you know how Adrian didn't like. There's a scene before he leaves where they share like a look, but they don't talk or anything. She said how much she missed him, and it's just they both say I missed you, and she's like, I'm with you through and through. And he says, it's such a good, like I said, there's such a good couple. Like, just a scene like that. Not a lot of dialogue. They don't need, like, and then it's all, and we gotta always have this moment in a Rocky movie. It's not a trope. I think it's a good trope. And just in general, because it's a reality. Sometimes you do need that reinsurance. Because then we get the second trading scene. This is where they cue Hearts on Fire. I fucking love that song. I just, in general, love this soundtrack. It's so 80s, but it's just the songs themselves are actually good. I just listen to them just randomly, like, I fucking love this movie. So Rocky's like once again, Rocky's using nature. He's cutting trees down instead of using weights. He has like Tony, Paulie, and Adrian on like a wagon, and he's like lifting that basically like weights instead of what Drago's doing. Like he's using like the elements. He's training in a farm or he's training in snow, while Drago's using like fancy equipment. While Hearts on Fire is playing, it just pumps you up for just in general. I love the montage moments, but obviously of the films, this film has the best montage. I just there's so many, and that's another. I've actually heard that as a criticism from some people that there's too many montages, but I'm like that's what I'd argue. There's one Rocky 3 had just as many montages. Like there's the training scene. There's a training scene that just these are boxers. These are guys who work out. There's just gonna be a lot of that. Sorry, these are people who work out who are getting ready for a fight. Of course, they're gonna. I don't know, man. Some criticism, just like how is that a criticism? And what's wrong with the montage just so I can listen to a badass song? You know. It's just an excuse to listen to Hearts on Fire. I'm cool with that. So then Rocky ends it, when the song's about to end. He climbs on the mountain and screams Drago's name while, Drago's like, running. Because they're both like running uphill, but Drago's like on like the treadmill. Like it's this like advanced treadmill while Rocky's just training on a fucking mountain. He's climbing a mountain. It's just like, and like I said, it's a metaphor obviously because Drago's a mountain. So we get to the fight, and now we're in Russia. That's another reason I love the final fight, and it's not just because of the fight itself, just the crowd. Because, it's almost like a wrestling crowd as a wrestling fan, I sometimes use that, but just in general, the crowd, like, they were very anti-Rocky. Because this is the first time in the movies, Rocky in general, especially in America, he's going to always be cheered. He's seen as, like, that American hero. So he's gonna always be cheered, but he's in another country. And Rocky comes out, the crowd's booing him, but he just like doesn't care. He wants to fight Drago. And then Drago gets this like fancy entrance with like this the music they use is almost like horror movie music. I'm not gonna lie, or like some sci-fi kind of music. And then they play like the Russian anthem, which you know, and the crowd's like super pro Drago, anti Rocky, but then like initially like it starts off Drago's like controlling him, but Rocky starts like one hit he makes Drago bleed, and that's kind of what it. That's when I think Drago even started doubting himself, and he was even saying he's like a piece of iron, meaning I no matter how many times I hit this, like, even he was realizing that. And then obviously I should have mentioned we gotta get the classic, I must break you. So he's just all around. I love Clubber because I like the opposite. Like Clubber like is talking trash, while Drago's like a man of few words. His main big dialogue is I must break you, or if he dies, he dies. He says some other stuff, but like I'm talking about like major dialogue, whereas Clubber is just talking shit. So I like that juxtaposition. Like I'm gonna use that word a lot, but so the round starts. Obviously, Rocky's getting dominated, but Rocky makes him bleed. Then the rounds just keep going, and just Rocky starts getting some good shots and taking some shots from Drago, and just keeps getting up. And eventually, even like the announcers were noticing, the crowd's actually starting to cheer for Rocky. Even like this crowd is from another country, and it's just because it doesn't matter what country where you're from. That human nature of you've fallen, but you're constantly getting up. People are gonna always have that respect for that. That's human nature. That's that human respect. Doesn't matter where you're from, where you're constantly beat down and then you're getting back up. Like, and then he's almost doing the same tactic he did with Drago, like with not Drago with Clubber, where he's like tiring him out and he's like throw all your big bombs, and he's still getting up, and Rocky's getting a lot of those. It was such a good fight. In general, the fight of the I think all the fight choreography in the other movies are great, but this one it was just like you felt every hit. Every time he got hit by Drago, like man, it's like ooh. I was just so invested. I cheer like I'm watching this fight the first time every time. So he finally gets the knockout on Drago, and I think there's a scene also like where like Nikolai almost like was talking trash to Drago, and Drago's like, no, I'm doing this for me, not for Russia. And eventually, so Rocky gets the win, and then we get the everybody can change, which you can meme somewhat. It's still a good scene. Because yeah, it's true, everyone can change. Like if you can change, I can change, we can all change, and then the movie ends. I fucking love this movie, man. This movie is so good. The drama, the score, the story all around. The final, like I said, of all the fights in the movies, this is my favorite one. I love the final fight. The fight in this is so good. You're so pumped. You're like cheering Rocky on. I mean, I do that in the other ones too, but just this one more. Just because I do like Apollo, and just seeing Apollo die like that. And Drago was a great antagonist. Mickey was missing, so that's gonna always. It's not a. I don't look at that as a negative. It's just because it ended up happening that way. And it still works for the story, but it's just Mickey is gonna always. He always was that like. There is gonna be that element missing somewhat, but Rocky 4 is great. I definitely recommend it. A lot of people's eyes, this is their favorite. This is my favorite, and that's pretty much it. This review is super positive. Fucking Rocky 4 is amazing. Tomorrow, like I said, I'll be ranking my favorite Michaels, and then I'll do a bands I love. It'll be like a late night bands I love, like just like this one video will be. Other than that, I'm gonna cheers to Rocky 4. I would give this film a 10 out of 10. You know what? 10 out of 10. Fuck it, I'm keeping it there. I fucking love this movie. So, cheers to that. We will continue with Rocky 5 on next Tuesday, and I guess I'll give a quick little. I haven't watched it in some years, but I know a lot of people view this one as their worst one. I don't think Rocky 5 is that bad. I'm not saying it's good, but I think it's fine. Like the Rocky stuff, like I don't think you can get wrong with like the Rocky story and the stuff with him and Adrian. Like those main core characters, it's good, but yeah, it's definitely a step down from Rocky 4. So we'll talk more about that on Tuesday. But as usual, fuck Warner Brothers. Fuck Disney. Fuck La Bitch James. Fuck Colin Kaepernick. Fuck Kevin Smith. And fuck Joe Biden. I'll talk to y'all later tomorrow. Peace.